Over to Abass now, Isiaka, from University of East Anglia to talk about another disability inclusion project.
Thank you very much, Carol. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abass Isiaka, Research Associate at the University of East Anglia. And I'm also a Liverpool Career Fellow. I'll be starting in January next year. Before moving to the UK in 2018 as a Commonwealth Scholar, I used to teach especially in a school where I support students with disabilities. And the struggle I had as a practitioner actually led me to disability inclusion research. And I've always taken this experience on board since then. My research now at the moment focuses on the history and the future of disability inclusion in higher education in West Africa. I'm particularly interested in the so-called unintended consequences of design, policy, and institutional culture, and how we can transform that through evidence and innovation. And over the next 6 months, I'm planning to work with partners in Nigeria and the UK to pilot Every Campus, which is a higher education inclusion platform that helps universities audit accessibility, measure progress, and design data-driven, as people have said here, inclusion strategies. So disability inclusion for me is a transformation issue as much as a decolonial imperative, given the history of how universities were founded and funded, especially in West Africa. And within this, the given civilizing mission of universities, and as this civilizing modernity sort of plots along, we need to look for a new model of cultural citizenship where disabled people can be citizens, can also contribute to development. And the Nigerian education system, as people might be aware, has expanded significantly from just one, say, university in 1948 to about 300 universities today. And so as well, we've seen enrollment climbing, even though participation is still below 12%. But for students with disabilities, this has not translated into any qualitative difference but this shift, as we've seen from our context as well, has happened in 2017 when the Joint Admission Matriculation Board and the National University Commission decided to start collecting data on disability inclusion in our education. And this has changed a lot of things. We now have the JAM Equal Opportunity Group. But fundamentally, as someone interested in research, in history, and how universities have been used in many contexts, I want to understand how this history, the authority that we see in policy text, the logic of time, and how dictatorial it could be, and the inaccessibility of built spaces, and all of this, how all of this interact to determine who gets what from the university. And this is taking us from this special, this focus on speciality of disability inclusion, the RAMs, the lift, the accessibility features, but there is also a fundamental change that needs to happen in the way we think about the university and the role of university in delivering access, and education plays a huge role in this, because it means if people can access higher education, they can be able to access employment, be advocates of their own rights, and also be able to contribute significantly. So this is where this is how I come to disability inclusion, which is thinking about the path or the path dependency nature of how universities have evolved over time. And for my Liverpool Career Fellowship, I'm going to be developing a history of disability inclusion in higher education policies in West Africa from 1940 to date. And I'm taking this what I call tripartite work of resisting the violence of the past, the violence and injustice of the present, and rescuing the past from these singular narratives of defect and deficit, which is to use it to fuel or look at emerging or reimagine alternative futures for disability inclusion. And I'm going to be using a speculative participatory ethnographic research, which is thinking of how do we explain path dependency, or this post-colonial theory of policy stickiness, where even with policies, what still happens. So how do we get universities to start thinking of how do they move from what they were created to do and what they should be reimagining going forward. So this is where I am. And also, from my research, my doctoral research, which looked at the enactment of disability inclusion policies. There is this assumption that policies get implemented, but we've seen that before that implementation happens, there is a process of translation, a process of interpretation of policies, and universities are very good at subsuming policy text within discourses. And in most cases, when you ask them why this, they say, oh, this is how we do it. And in my research, a lot of people are focused on, okay, if you get access, if you get people to participate, then you have outcome, which is more of the equality of outcome. But students that I spoke to in Nigerian campuses are telling me that, from the previous slide where you say this place is not built for people like us, which is thinking, okay, there is a fundamentally flawed design of how universities were created, and we need to start rethinking or getting universities to think about this. And also, how do we make them part of this transformation theory is also what I'm really keen. And I've been able to do this across different platforms, getting students with disabilities to sit in the room with the leaders or the powers that be within the institution to discuss this is how we want to be served, this is how we want to be included, rather than we thinking. And this we could see from the JAMB Equal Opportunity Group that has been administering the entrance examination for persons with disabilities in Nigeria. And this started in 2017. And from the data we've seen overall, just about 1/3 of persons with disabilities have been able to access higher education, but which signals that there is a pre-university problem that we need to address. And that is, how is the journey of a person with disability from birth or at the point of acquiring disability, how is that shaped by policy of, say, primary education, secondary education, or even them thinking of taking a unified tertiary matriculation examination. So this is where the problem is, that universities don't even bother to understand what is their journey before getting to the gate of the university. And this is what my research was really interested in. Okay, what is the work, what I describe as the access work that persons with disabilities have to do to get to the point of thinking of or imagining going to the university. And this troubled, rhizomatic, problematic process has been where my research had focused on. And I'm just going to finish on the fact that I believe in translating research into impact, and I've been working around quite a number of ideas, and one of that is Every Campus, which is taking that responsibility to make sure that how do we use data and design, which are sort of very, very key element of this problem, to be able to transform higher education across the continent. And this is why I founded Every Campus, which is a platform that helps universities improve inclusion, audit accessibility, and connect students through a range of platforms. So the vision is simple. Every campus must work for every student. And this, I'm starting with West Africa, where my research is based. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abass.